I'm David Curley in Washington. There is an investigation underway this morning about what sickened 6 passengers on New Year's Day. It was a Frontier flight that landed in Tampa in the afternoon. 229 people on board. 6 of them said they were ill. Immediately, they were taken off the aircraft to be checked. The other passengers held on that aircraft until officials figured out what was going on. Finally, about an hour later, those 6 passengers who were taken off were released and let go. They were not taken to the hospital. The other passengers on board the aircraft also released. And the investigation has now shifted back to Cleveland. That's where this flight originated. What officials want to know is whether there was some bad water in some of the drinking fountains in the airport in Cleveland. And that's where they are focusing their investigation. Once again, nobody taken to the hospital. The illness is apparently passed. The question is, was there a problem with those drinking fountains? I'm David Curley in Washington.
Just a little bit.
Put your balance first. You've done it for like a minute.
There you go. Good. Look at that now.
I'm walking.
Look at that.
I'm walking.
Do another little step. Just a little one.
I'm walking. Yes.
Class, come here.
I'm walking. You guys. I even took a big
That was a
step.
big marching step. You got some really good balance going.
She is walking. Without my kids. Without my kids. Let's look at it. Woo. Good job. Poor she's walking without kids.
Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve making a splash as stars got soaked, ushering in 2019. Raindrops and confetti falling as the crowd rang in the new year in Times Square, soaking up performances from icons like Christina Aguilera. And it was a flashback to 1985's New Year's Rockin' Eve that made a cameo in the teaser trailer for Season 3 of Netflix hit Stranger Things, the series slated to return July 4th. But New Year's was a different kind of celebration for Grammy-winning singer Ricky Martin, who took to Instagram announcing the birth of his daughter, Lucia. Speaking of birthdays, today actor Cuba Gooding Jr. turns 51, and former Dancing with the Stars champ Karina Smirnoff turns 41. And that's what's happening in Hollywood. I'm Natalie Brunell, ABC News.
Hi, everybody. It's Peter Travers here to tell you what's out there at the movies. And I'm going to start with Escape Room, which is kind of a Saw situation in which these people have 6 rooms that they have to escape from. They're all kids, and they think it's a game, but it's not a game. If you're the last one out of the room, you die. So you know if this is the movie for you. And then we have American Hangman, starring Donald Sutherland as a judge who gets kidnapped and he's put on trial himself for all his crimes and all his decisions. And then we have The Vanishing. This is a Gerard Butler action movie about a lighthouse keeper who sees in a boat that's near the lighthouse some hidden treasure and goes after it. And then we have Stan and Ollie, which is opening wide everywhere. It's the story of Laurel and Hardy, especially in their final years. John C. Reilly is terrific as Oliver Hardy, and Steve Coogan as Stan Laurel. And you see them not only funny, but as people, as human beings. So watch us every day on ABC News Live, and I'll see you at the movies.
സംരക്ഷിക്കാൻ പോരാടുമെന്നോ പ്രതിജ്ഞ ചെയ്യുന്നു. പ്രതിജ്ഞ പ്രതിജ്ഞ പ്രതിജ്ഞ.
In a recent study, researchers used a series of auctions to find out how much it would take to get people to walk away from Facebook. Most agreed to give up the social media platform for relatively little money if it were for a short period of time. $1.84 if it were for an hour, $15.73 for 3 days. But as time stretched, the amount of money demanded quickly escalated. Most people agreed to give up Facebook for a year, only if they received well over $1,000 in exchange. As reluctant as people may be, experts say giving up social media altogether may come with a number of benefits, including decreased risk of depression and anxiety, better sleep, and more time to spend with family and friends. With this Medical Minute, I'm Linda Lopez.
Hopefully they fit it.
Just put them on your head. Like this way.
Holy cow.
Let's see. Look at your shirt. Can you see?
What?
Wow.
What do you see?
Everything's more fun. Oh, wow.
Aww.
You see the balloons?
Oh, that's crying. Oh God, I'm crying now. Oh.
Holy cow.
You can see the color of my house, right?
Look at your shirt.
I didn't realize how colorblind I was. I can tell the difference in these.
That's a present for Mom.
End of it.
Sandwich? No, I don't think it's from Dad.
You're the ones too.
Just say thank you, honey. She hasn't opened it yet.
Open it up.
As long as it doesn't explode.
Ooh, I like the box so far. Isn't that nice?
Keep guessing, huh?
Oh, did you tie that too? Is he proposing to her? Yes, again. Dang it, you didn't learn the first time.
I know.
The scissors.
It's about time.
Get the
I
scissors,
don't
Connie.
think this was got in the dollar store. They don't wrap up like this.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah, Connie's dollar store.
Yeah, in Minnesota they do. You got it?
No.
There, you're getting it. Keep going.
I only have till Monday, Mom.
This is hot.
Yeah, that's the top.
How many boxes is there in?
Only 6.
Nice boxes.
I'm looking for dollar store on here. They don't put dollar store on it.
What is it? What is it, hon? Oh, how sweet. Oh, that's so sweet.
Pass it around, Mom. Everybody wants to see it.
She hasn't really looked at it yet. Oh. That is so sweet.
I'm not crying, you guys are crying.
It's a diamond. It's a diamond.
I know it.
Bait, Bryce.
Yeah.
Hope you had a great holiday. We are back in business in Washington. The government is still shut down 12 days and counting now. Federal workers out of work, federal contractors even in a tougher spot, not likely to get paid back. A lot of pain going around as this now sets in to be one of the longest shutdowns of the federal government in history. The president, Jordan, just making an extraordinary statement about it as everyone is back in town, holding another spectacle of a cabinet meeting.
Yeah, Devin, it was rambling. It was riddled with factual inaccuracies. inaccuracies, and stunningly, it lasted for over an hour and a half. Reporters kept in the room there with cameras rolling. It covered a wide range of topics, everything from the government shutdown to Syria to Kanye West. And on the government shutdown, the big story of the day, of course, he said he's willing to go on with this fight for as long as it takes to secure that border wall funding.
The president hungry for some media attention after shying away from the cameras. He hunkered down here in Washington over the holiday, and he appears to be digging in. Just take a listen.
Could be a long time, and it could be quickly. Could be a long time. It's too important a subject to walk away from. This is really something that should be bipartisan, and we'll see if it is. I hope it is. I hope it is. I'm prepared. I think the people of the country think I'm right. I think the people of this country think I'm right. Again, I could have done nothing. I could have had a lot easier presidency by doing nothing. But I'm here. I want to do it right.
And let's bring in our senior congressional correspondent, Mary Bruce, right now for the latest on Capitol Hill. Mary, it sure sounds like the president is dug in. Democrats don't seem to be budging either. Is there any chance that you see that this incoming Democratic leadership could give the president some more money for his wall?
It is really tough to see how that's going to happen right now. And remember, as literally every hour passes, Democrats feel that they're gaining even more leverage. And that's because by tomorrow, right around this time, House Democrats will be in control of that chamber. The president, for the first time, will be facing a new political reality, which is divided government. So the chances that he's going to get what he wants are actually decreasing in many ways. And you hit the nail on the head, which is that both sides here are digging in. Instead of looking for ways to compromise, you're actually almost seeing the opposite happen as time passes. And yes, there is a small glimmer of hope today in the sense that at least the two sides are talking, or at the very least they're going to be in the same room. They are meeting face to face for the first time since this shutdown began now 12 days ago. But based off of what we've heard from the president so far today, it doesn't really seem like these are good faith negotiations.
Yeah,
it seems
and Mary,
that we are seeing more of the same.
And let's take a look at what the Democrats are going to do tomorrow when, as you said, they take over. Nancy Pelosi will, we presume, get the gavel as Speaker of the House. She has announced what they plan to do to reopen the government. You're seeing it here on the screen. They're planning to pass two measures, one to fund all the agencies of the government through September, and then another one to reopen the Department of Homeland Security at least through February so they can negotiate a little bit. But there is no wall funding in any of that. That is certainly a tough stance headed into whatever talks are going on right now.
Well, and the White House has already said that that's essentially a non-starter. Look, the president made very clear in that very long remarks in the cabinet room just now that he's not going to accept anything less than the roughly $5 billion that he's been demanding all along. So the idea that Democrats are going to come in tomorrow, they're going to pass this legislation to reopen the government, but the president has already thrown cold water on that plan because it simply will not give him the money he's demanding for his wall. The reason Democrats have some optimism, though, is because, of course, this plan has already previously passed in the Republican-led Senate. So essentially, House Democrats here are daring Senate Republicans, daring Mitch McConnell to not move forward with this plan, even though they know that there is likely the support for it within their caucus.
And in searching for a way out of this, I think a lot of people wondering how the heck are they going to resolve this as this drags on, Jordan. Everybody's looking for some wiggle room. Is the president, is he absolutely glued to the $5 billion figure? What are sources telling you? Is there any wiggle room on the number?
Yeah, Devin, the challenge is that the president is really saying both things here. He said in that cabinet meeting that he doesn't want anything less than that $5 billion, but he also at another point expressed openness to less than that. So it's anyone's guess, Devin. The only person who knows is the president, and we know that he often in negotiations stakes out a higher number than he actually expects to get as a negotiating tactic.
And of course, the vice president was on the Capitol Hill floating a lower number, Mary. So perhaps there's some wiggle room in the language. Maybe some of this money goes toward fencing and not a concrete barrier. And are you hearing anything about DACA? Could that be a solution, a sweetener, perhaps, for Democrats here?
Yeah, there are a lot of possible things being floated. The problem here, and this is what we just saw, is that no one really trusts anything. None of the congressional negotiators up here trust any of the offers being made from the White House unless they are coming from Donald Trump himself. Because you have instances like this where the vice president or the acting chief of staff come up and may float other numbers, as what happened here on day one of the shutdown when the vice president suggested that they could compromise on a much lower figure. But then you have the president come out right now and throw that offer under the bus and say that he simply will not accept that. Look, congressional leaders here have learned from past experience, and it seems to be the case again right now that you simply don't know whether any of these offers coming from other White House officials hold up unless the president is publicly backing them.
All right, Mary Bruce, thank you so much. Much more from you coming up on World News Tonight and World News Prime here at 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC News Live. You know, meanwhile, Jordan, as the wrangling continues, the sting from the shutdown is actually impacting real people, hundreds of thousands of federal workers. Take a look at some of these numbers. These are the latest figures on the impact of the shutdown. Some 800,000 workers working without pay. Those are federal employees. We also have, as those 9 major federal departments are closed, a number of contracted workers. These are not federal government employees, but some 420 Smithsonian security officers, for example, will not get paid. The Smithsonians are all closing today, as you know. And then thousands of janitors, people who work for contractor companies to do the cleaning of so many of these federal buildings, will not get paid. They won't get that money back. It's certainly a big impact. And we're joined now by one of those federal workers who's feeling the pain, actually went to the White House this afternoon to say a few prayers, hopefully raise this issue into the spotlight. Daryl Burton of Maryland is an investigator with the Postal Service Inspector General's Office, which is a federally funded arm of the Postal Service. Mr. Burton, thanks so much for being with us. You're also a pastor of a church, we should say, Christian church up in Maryland. Appreciate your time. Give us a very personal view into what the impact of this shutdown has been for you and your family so far.
Well, the shutdown for me that happened on December 22nd has been very tough on us as a family. Certainly having to supply and having to meet the needs of my family, paying mortgage and paying all the bills that we have to pay. It's been a little bit strenuous during this holiday season and going into the new year. But being a man of faith, I'm grateful to God that I know that He's going to turn things around for us and that this country is going to come together and pull together like I know that we're going to.
And you're a father of 6, Mr. Burton, and I know I read that a number of your kids are in college, which is an added financial burden. Have you had to take some additional steps to kind of keep that financial support line going? Have you had to cut off some spending, take on new jobs, anything of the like so far?
Well, I'm a father of 3. I think you said I'm a father of 6. I'm actually a father of 3. But at any rate, I am a father of 3. And certainly I have a son that's in college up in New York, and he has some expenses that we need to take care of, and that we are in communications with the creditors and loan departments to see how we can make the very minimum payment if necessary to keep things going and to make sure that the credit rating and all that good stuff is right and the way it should be. And so we may have to make some adjustments with our creditors. We've called and we reach out to see how we can maintain our lifestyle without it being too hard on us. But certainly we've done that to make sure that the family's taken care of and that my son can continue his education and get the schooling that he needs to get.
You sounded a little optimistic about, and it's a matter of faith that this can get resolved relatively soon. You've also been relatively nonpartisan about this, that it is simply speaking to the fact that it has an impact on so many families. What's your message to lawmakers in that building behind you as they try to come to some sort of compromise this afternoon?
Well, the message I would have for our lawmakers is simply this, is that let us come together and unite together, because we all are people of God. And as you heard me say a little while ago, I am a man of faith, and I certainly believe that, as the Bible says, if we will humble ourselves and turn to the Lord, He will hear our cry and He will heal our land. And so I'm optimistic and hopeful that we can put aside our political views and differences that we have and come together and unite this country together, because that's what we need right now. We need a country that's united together, moving in the same direction instead of moving in different directions. We may not always agree on everything, but we certainly need to pull together as a country to come together and to resolve this issue of the government being shut down, because there are thousands and thousands of federal workers across this country who are hurting, who need to make sure that families are being supported, who need to make sure that bills are being paid, who can't put food on the table, who can't continue to make sure that their children get the education that's needed. And there's so many other things we can focus our resources on. And I understand what's going on with what the president is asking for and what we should be doing in terms of taking care of our borders and protecting our borders, which I'm all for. But let's come together and do it together as Democrats and Republicans and independents, if you will. Let us all come together, people in this country, to unite in that way.
All right, Daryl Burton, very well said. We are thinking of you and your family as you're going through this difficult period. We hope for all families that this gets resolved soon. Thank you so much, sir. Happy New Year to you. Daryl Burton, again, an investigator with the Postal Service Inspector General's Office, also a pastor of a church, father of three. Important story, Jordan, because so often shutdowns get portrayed as simply the closure of public office buildings, closure of national parks, but it really does impact not just families of federal workers here in D.C., but federal offices all across the country.
It's certainly having a very real impact, and Devin, a lot more people are going to start feeling that impact now as the Smithsonian's are closing, the National Zoo here in D.C. is closed. Those are things that are right in everybody's face.
All right, and the new Congress kicking in tomorrow, looking to take on that challenge head on, as we've been saying. Also electing the most diverse, swearing in rather, the most diverse House freshman class in American history tomorrow. 100 new Congress people will take the oath tomorrow. 10 new senators, giving the Democrats a majority, 235 to 200. Among them, a number of new Democratic women in particular. But Jordan, one of the things that's striking about this new class coming in is how divided they are in both parties. Republicans divided, Democrats divided amongst themselves.
Absolutely. We've seen the Republican Party have members who are pulling the party to the right, and now in the Democratic Party, there are these fresh faces who want to pull it way to the left. So it'll be interesting to see how the party leadership wrangles those more unruly and impassioned young members.
And perhaps some older members, impassioned older members. We're talking about Mitt Romney, who will be sworn in tomorrow as one of the newest Republican senators in the United States Senate. He's coming out swinging against President Trump in a new op-ed. Take a look. Mitt Romney says that the president has not risen to the mantle of the office. He has challenged the president's leadership. And he said that he will speak out, Jordan, against any divisive, racist, sexist, anti-immigrant, dishonest, or destructive rhetoric that could come from the White House. That drew a pretty sharp response from President Trump.
Yeah, the president saying that he wishes Mitt Romney would be a team player, and reminding him on Twitter that he's the one who won the presidency, and reminding him that he's the one who lost. But certainly, Devin, it is striking to see Romney making this note before he even is sworn in to Congress, saying that he's going to stand up to this president. It's interesting, of course, because we've seen these two go through periods of mending fences and then breaking them down again. So it appears we're at a new valley between the two.
Taking on the role of Bob Corker, who retired, of course. Jeff Flake also leaving the Congress. It's not just Republicans. Democrats have some divisions of their own, as Jordan was saying. Those younger members, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York among them, challenging the establishment on the Democratic side, Nancy Pelosi. One of the issues they're agitating against today, right out of the gate on the Democratic side, is this issue of pay-go. It's a rule that Nancy Pelosi is looking to implement in the Democratic House. It means that any legislation passed by House Democrats would have to be pay-as-you-go. In other words, they would have to raise taxes or cut spending to foot the bill of any new programs they put in place. Interesting, Jordan, progressives, people like Ocasio-Cortez, don't want pay-go. They're going to oppose it. They're going to vote against Nancy Pelosi right off the bat. They see it as a threat to some of those progressive initiatives like Medicare for all, perhaps.
Certainly, and it's interesting to see the Democratic Party picking this up, right? You know, the Republican Party is typically viewed as the fiscally conservative party, but on both sides of the aisle, we've seen the deficit and the debt just balloon in this country, so we'll see if they can really get it together.
And both of them sort of ignoring the red flashing lights around the debt and deficit, so more to come tomorrow on those debates within both parties as the Congress kicks off. Next now to a very interesting drama playing out over in Russia. An American over the weekend was arrested and accused of being a spy. We're just learning that the State Department has gained access to 48-year-old Paul Whelan in Russia. We want to bring in now our global affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz, for the latest on this. Martha, we're just learning that Ambassador John Huntsman has gotten to see Whelan. What are you hearing?
Whelan is apparently in one of the most notorious prisons in Russia, but John Huntsman did go visit him. You're supposed to have consular access if you're accused of anything or arrested like that, and he got it within 48 hours or so. What we've heard is that he is in good condition. He provided a list of things he needed and said he wants a lawyer. But we also heard Secretary of State Pompeo say today they want to know why he has been incarcerated, why Paul Whelan has been charged with spying during his trip to Moscow to go to a wedding of a friend. And Pompeo said they basically want answers, and if he is being detained under false premises, that he should be released.
And it's sort of interesting, Martha, a lot of speculation online as to whether Whelan actually could be an American spy. He had this presence on American social media. He's an automotive parts supplier, corporate security director over there, former Marine, as you're seeing here in the pictures. Do you see any indication that perhaps this is sort of a tit for tat on the part of Russia, sort of detaining this American, say, in exchange for Maria Butina, the Russian who the Americans have in custody here?
Well, the timing is certainly suspect. It was just several weeks ago she pleaded guilty to trying to infiltrate these conservative operations here in the U.S., the NRA, and other things. So she pleaded guilty. Vladimir Putin says he knows nothing about her, has never heard of her. Nobody seems to have heard of her. But having arrested an American just a few weeks later, that really is a red flag. But I do want to go over Devin and Jordan, his background. He was a Marine. He was a U.S. Marine. He had 2 deployments to Iraq, but he was discharged for bad conduct in 2008, charges related to larceny. So I find it a little difficult to understand why any of the U.S. intelligence agencies would hire him after that kind of record. It seems that he would be hard for them to trust in a job like that. We don't know much more about those charges against him in the Marine Corps, but they were serious enough to get him kicked out of the Marine Corps. Also, his brother, who says 100% this guy was not a spy, had no idea that his brother had been discharged until these media reports after his arrest in Moscow.
This will certainly be interesting to see what U.S. officials can find out about what Whelan has been charged with and what they can expect to see there. He does face 10 to 20 years in prison, as you said. Martha Raddatz, we know you stand on the case. Thank you so much, Martha. We will have much more on that story coming up again on World News and World News Prime here at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC News Live. A big day tomorrow as well with the new Congress being sworn in. We'll have special coverage here with Jordan and the whole team from Capitol Hill to the White House, swearing in of the new Speaker, likely Nancy Pelosi of California. And speaking of the new Democratic majority, Vanity Fair, in the new upcoming February edition of the magazine, has quite an interesting look at some of the new power players in town. Take a look at some of these photos. Here you see the new chairman, Democratic chairman of some of the most powerful committees on Capitol Hill there, Elijah Cummings on the left, chairman